Today I'm going to show you how we took our Starlink from this to this and wired it via 12 volt without cutting any wires. Don't worry, if you're just here to learn how to wire this via 12 volt, I have good news. You don't have to cut through the back of your Dishy to void the warranty, but we want to do this to mount it permanently on the top of our van, which I'll also show you how to do in this video. Since building our last van, technology has greatly improved over the last 3 years. We now have 12 volt air conditioners, solar panels you can walk on, and today we're installing technology that will let us have Wi-Fi basically wherever we roam. Meet Starlink, which is Wi-Fi satellite and getting really popular over the last year for RVers and van life. If you're not familiar with Starlink, it has two main components, the obvious Dishy and the router that comes with it. To power it, most people simply just plug the router right into a house outlet using 120 volt and connect the Dishy to the router and then run this wire through a window or something all the way to an open space to get signal. But instead of setting this up and putting it away each and every time we need Wi-Fi, we're gonna permanently fix this on the roof of our van, but that requires us to cut directly into this thing. But before we cut into this, we need to make sure it works, so we're gonna power it up and test it, because as soon as I cut into it, it voids warranty. When you buy a Starlink, you have 14 days of a trial period until your automatic billing cycle continues. It's like 150 bucks a month. I unfortunately canceled or paused the service because I didn't want to get charged the 150 and assumed I would have a 14-day grace period to test everything out before the actual billing cycle kicked in, which isn't the case. So if you're like me and don't need the Starlink right away, wait until day 13 or day 10 or whatever to cancel your service so you can test everything. Make sure your Dishy works before cutting into it if you're gonna follow what we're doing here. Otherwise, you're gonna have to spend $150 to activate your service, even though you don't really need it. I have no idea what I'm doing right now. Well, it's a new day. For whatever reason, Starlink customer support never got back to me, so I decided to just give it a shot. This morning, it's 6:50, and I'm activated. I'm online, I'm doing software updates right now, and I'll hopefully be able to do a speed test in 5 minutes and show you what I'm getting, but that's a good sign. The Dishy's working. We're gonna be able to cut into this thing and get it mounted to the roof. So the update is complete. I'm gonna run a speed test right now. Here we go. All right, just crossed over 200 megabytes for download and upload. I'm getting roughly 20 megabytes on upload, which is faster than my home Wi-Fi in terms of upload. So you might be wondering how we're gonna mount this flat on our roof, and the answer is this Starmount 3D printed flat mount, I guess, for the Dishy. So obviously the Dishy does not fit with here with the back brace on or the back stem. So we need to cut that out and then insert it into this. Okay, it's the moment we've all been waiting for. It's time to use the rotary tool to create the cut. And as soon as I start this, there's no going back. Warranty is voided, it's game over. This could get a little messy. So, safety first. Time to pry this thing open. Okay.
Oh my.
All right, how wild is this? What do you think?
Nothing like cutting up 600 bucks.
I know, right?
Let's hope it still works. So do we just put that on this?
Yeah, so we take this off. Goes right underneath this. And this is obviously clear.
Oh,
So
it
it
goes
sits in there.
under it.
And then this is the on top.
So
Clear.
that protects it.
This is plexiglass, exactly what we made our
electrical out of.
Yeah. Now I'm hacking into this piece to get the wire that connects to the motherboard and to the router. just got the wire out of this. This is now trash, which is just so crazy. Put that right there. And now I need to take this thingamajig off, which is just a rubber seal and a little magnet. Well, that's better. Now we're gonna put this into here and then wire everything up and get it ready for the Dishy. I finally got it flush, even a little bit below flush, which is fine according to the instructions. And I'm okay with that. What I was neglecting was the little cutout piece of the actual wire itself. So if I take this out, come on. Right here, you have to go super low, at least for my dish. Super, super low. Remember that wire I grabbed? Well, we're gonna seal it up with this Gorilla Clear Grip to make sure it is completely waterproof and we get no leaks. It has been 14 hours since we put the Gorilla Glue on the plug, so it's time to see if it cured, and then we are ready to connect it and see if the Starlink turns on. Nice and glued.
You glued all the way around it? Does that make it waterproof?
Yep.
Looks really good. Looks like it's supposed to be like that.
Thank you. Okay, we are plugged in. Okay.
That is flush.
All right, the Starmount with the Starlink is officially put together. This thing looks really sweet. I'm stoked. You might be wondering what these 4 long silver bolts are, screws are. And I'm gonna be putting riv nuts on the roof of my van, onto the deck panels. So I'll be screwing these 4 silver screws into the rib nuts because it can go through the entire mount. And that's how we'll secure it. This goes.
You psyched?
Yes. Now, should we open her up and put her out in the rain?
Probably. We're not gonna get a good idea if it works or not if we don't.
We'll check to see if we have Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi.
Fingers crossed.
For those wondering, it's been about 5 minutes. We're still booting. Someone is getting nervous.
Was or is?
I said is. Uh-oh.
It says offline, network issue, downloading update. So hopefully we are okay. It just switched to online with the green,
Ooh!
but I don't think we have signal yet, like Wi-Fi. Oh, we have it. Speed test. We are in business. Great news, the rain has finally came to an end after 3 full days of rain, but we are getting rain this afternoon, so I have a tight window to get this mounted on the roof and run the cables through. So hopefully we can get that done today. To run the wires through, we're gonna use this Seaview cable seal, cable entry gland basically, which is a little bit different than the solar ones, and this is like super waterproof. And you can add more wires later down the road with one of these things. So I used it for our light bar, actually the Blue Seas ones, but we're gonna try this one just in case we wanna add more wires later, which I doubt we will, honestly. But it's super easy to use. It's time to get it going. So I got a bucket on the ceiling of the van so I can capture the metal shavings when I drill through the hole for the wire, and it's time to get going. It's really pretty easy. While I wait for the paint to dry on the roof of the van, I want to go over how the Starlink is wired up via 120 volt, and then I'll show you how I'm going to wire it up via 12 volt with just 3 components. A Okay, first we have the router here, which is basically how everything is powered. You have two inserts here, one via the power cable, and then one would be the satellite dish here. So Starlink made this super simple, just plugging this into here. So this is the wall outlet plugged into your van or your RV, whatever. And then you would plug the dish cable into the router here. And then the other end would go up the dish's stem. Here's a dish's stem up here, and it would be plugged in right here. But now for me, with the flat mount, I just plug it in right to here. So this would be all said and done. The only thing you would need to do is be connected to shore power, or if you have an inverter on your rig, then turn on your inverter, which would consume more energy than just running this off of 12 volt. Now, to swap your Starlink setup from 120 volt to 12 volt, you need 4 components, and you're no longer going to use your Starlink router. You technically can use this thing if you want to tap in and hack into the motherboard and solder connections to power it via 48 volt, but that's a little too intense for me, and this thing's bulky anyway, I don't really want it. So the 4 components that you need are a 12 volt to 48 volt converter, an additional router, preferably one that runs off USB like this, or one that runs off 12 volt. This thing just runs off USB-C and is super efficient. Then you need a PoE injector, which is power over Ethernet, and that takes the 48 volt power and then sends that power through the Ethernet cord to the Dishy. And then this one here is just an adapter from the proprietary Starlink cable to an RJ45 cable that is shielded. So this component right here is the critical one that allows you not to cut through any of these and no longer crimp any wires of the RJ45s. So in terms of wiring it up, we're going to pretend that this side is my battery bank, and then as we move forward, this is the Dishy, obviously. So let's pretend that our power is coming off our battery and we have a switch in place. So I have a switch here, and that switch powers 2 components, the 12 volt to 48 converter, as well as our travel router that is going to be running off our USB. From the 12 volt to 48 converter, we're going to plug into the PoE injector, which is simple, just positive to positive, negative to negative, and then we will connect our Dishy cable to the RJ45 into the PoE side, and then we will do our router to the LAN side, and then we will take our Starlink cable and wire that directly into the adapter here, and boom. Assuming everything is set up properly, this should power up and be ready to roll. So I'm going to move all these components in the van, get this wired up to test, make sure everything's good to go, and then we'll seal everything up. Good, it's done, up on the roof. Time to go plug everything in and see if it works. I'm not going to set this up permanently yet because I ran out of wire and I need to wait till it comes in the mail. But I have it tinkered, set up temporarily just to demonstrate how it all works. And here's what we have. Here's my electrical setup. This is my fuse panel, and this last fuse right here is the 15 amp fuse that's going to the entire Starlink setup. So behind it I have it all ran to a switch, and this switch is rated up to 16 amps I believe, so it can handle all of this. I think the Starlink produces like 12 amps. I haven't tested this yet, but I'll hopefully be able to do that soon. And from the switch it goes to 2 parts. One to the 48 volt converter, and then the second goes to this mini USB port, which is 5 volt 3 amp. From the USB it powers the router here, and then from the 12 volt to 48 converter that powers the PoE injector. The PoE injector has 2 outputs. One is the local area network that goes to the router's WAN, which is I believe wide area network, and then the second one is the PoE, which goes to the adapter connected to the Starlink. So now it's all connected. Hopefully it's up and running. I'm gonna go grab my phone, open up the Starlink app, and we'll see what we get. And I need to connect to the Starlink Wi-Fi, which doesn't look like it's working right now. Oh, it's because I need to set up the, okay. it's connected. I forgot, I was looking for the Starlink router's Wi-Fi, and I need to connect to this router's Wi-Fi now. That makes sense. Okay, wow, that was stupid. Now I'm connected, and it says, cool, I'm getting only 11 megabytes of download speed, but it's not in the best spot, and it says your Starlink may be prioritized during times of heavy network usage in your area, and I'm in a very congested area in New Jersey by the beach. It's densely populated. So the good news is that it's working. You just got to remember, when you connect to your router, you're no longer using the router that you set up with the old one. So keep that in mind. Lastly, I want to check how many amps this is pulling in. I have my clamp meter right here, so hopefully I'll be able to read it. I'm going to read it what's going through the switch, so that'll tell me the Starlink's power as well as the router combined. So the total package, how much power I'm drawing. Right now it says I'm only pulling in 2.6 amps, 3 amps. So I guess that's really not much. I believe there is like a snow melting feature to heat the dish up. Maybe that's when the dish gets up to like 12 amps or whatever. All right, I think that wraps this video up. I'm super stoked on the turnout of this thing. Just remember, if you don't want to do the flat mount, you could just get the components to run it via 12 volt and then just take out your Starlink whenever you're using it and put the wire through whatever hole you have to funnel the wire through. But yeah, I hope this was helpful. I did get this idea from Jeep and Treetop. I think he was the first one to maybe share this type of install. So kudos to him, but this is a great setup. You don't have to cut any RJ45 wires, making this super simple and super easy. All right, back to framing the van. The build continues.